Well, howdy there. Welcome. Grab a seat, grab some popcorn. We've got a philosophical one today.
What's up, all you doodles and doodlers out there, you schemers and dreamers, and welcome back to another Doodle Talk. This is episode 13, 1-3, lucky number 13. Incidentally, I'm recording this on March 3rd, 2023, episode 13. Coincidence? I don't think so. Yeah, what's up, everyone? How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Grab a seat, get ready for another one. We got a good one today. Doing kind of I like to call this, I'm trying a little bit new format with this episode. I'm calling it a deep dive, and I'm just going over a quote that I really like. It's kind of a quote, kind of a phrase, kind of an ideology, but I'm just going to be kind of breaking it down and talking about what it means to me as an artist and a person. But first, let's go through, do some housekeeping. All right. So, I just released recently a little animation. It's Link playing a nice little ocarina. If you haven't checked it out yet, please go check it out. You can check it out on my Instagram and YouTube. And yeah, it's awesome. Like, it's doing really well as a post. A lot of people are really liking it. I'm super excited because I had a lot of fun making it, and it's just one of those things where it was like, this is a cool little idea I had. I wanted to just try and see if it would work. I had a hard time doing the animation at first, but I kind of figured out a way to kind of place my keyframes with the original drawing, and that made it not so incredibly difficult and cripplingly hard for me. I still, like, I look at it and I know there's just so many things I could have done better. But it's a really cool, fun little video. I recorded the music for it as well, like the little, it's Zelda's lullaby, like their Princess Zelda's theme, particularly from Ocarina of Time, but I guess the melody is the same. But yeah, I played the melody, put it on top of the animation, and had a lot of fun. So if you've already seen it and given it a like or anything, thanks for that. But if you haven't, go check it out. And on the topic of other things that I've released, by the time this comes out, this should also be released. It should be the third and last animation tutorial for the little simple animation how-to series that I've done. And this one is animating like a wind chime, the paper, like the little flag, the little tag at the bottom, like having that flip. I never know a good way to say that, because what do you call the little flag, the little tag, the paper that attaches to a wind chime like that, right? I literally looked it up, and I don't know if there's, like, I couldn't find anything concrete, like a consensus on what to call it. So if you have anything that you like to call it that makes sense, please let me know, because I will forever just be like picking random, either like paper or tag or flag. Tag doesn't really sound right. Flag doesn't really sound right. So I kind of just do paper, wind chime, flip animation. But yes, that should be posted, and the short 1-minute version of that should be up as well. So please go check those out. I had a lot of fun making them. I have some other ideas for other animation tutorials, little simple ones, right? And I'm considering making them soon. I just am not sure. There's a lot of other videos that I really want to make before that. But if you see those and you enjoy them, please let me know. Or if they help you, if you want to see something even more simple, I'm no animation god here, but I can, I got some of the basics down, and I have things that I've learned on how to do some of those more simple animations that will, if you've never done them before, it's going to probably help you, be kind of time saving, or give you a good way to approach them that'll help you practice and learn from them as well. But there are some other videos I want to make first. But if you're interested, let me know, because that would be a good way for me to gauge on how quickly I should make them. One of the ones I want to do is a fire animation, because that was really, really hard for me to learn. I learned most of that by trial and error. But I made it for the flaming Jolly Roger skull that I did for the ramen bowl for the ramen boys as like their little Jolly Roger logo, and that was awesome. And I learned a lot, so I could definitely do one on that. But then I'm also thinking of other simple things as well. So that's it for things from me that I, promoting and stuff. And there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about. So recently, I tried out the I'll set it up. So being a freelancer and working from home, you have to learn how to schedule your time. You have to learn how to be very good with whatever work you have and scheduling and doing that and stuff. And over the past like 2 years or so, I think I've gotten pretty good at creating a schedule for myself and like not procrastinating too much. But I've been trying to kind of just min-max it and like make it even more efficient. And I remembered I was on like Imgur or something, and I saw the pomodoro technique popped up, and I had seen this before. And the pomodoro technique, just for those who don't know, is essentially like it was created I think in like the 1980s, and originally kind of more for like people cooking or like doing short little interval style tasks and stuff, but it's grown and becomes a lot more widely used. But it's like you have a timer for 25 minutes. You do 25 minutes like complete focus on a short small task. Then you get a 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute break. And I think on the fourth time, after 4 25 minutes intervals, you get a longer break. So it could be anywhere from like 15 to 30 minutes. And I thought, you know what, that has always intrigued me. I've never really given it an actual go. So let me try and see what happens. And I started implementing it for a few days, and it didn't really do much for me. I think the problem with it is 25 minutes isn't enough for like when I'm doing translating or the typesetting, like lettering in Photoshop and stuff. I normally do chunks of like at least 30 minutes up to like 2 hours. I really try and get up and stretch every like 30 to 40 minutes, but that may be like literally 10 seconds of just standing up real quick and sitting back down. So I think for me, it just didn't really work very well with my style of working. I gave it a good shot. I followed it pretty strictly for 2 or 3 days, and it just didn't really do anything. I found that like having the timer there, like just I would be switching back and forth like my screen to see what the timer was at, and it was always like it would like stop, and then I'd be like, oh, if I had 10 more minutes, I probably could have got this one thing that I was working on done. So I am thinking about doing it again, but with like 45-minute intervals, like 45 on, 5 off, or like 50 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And that way it's essentially like an hour chunk, because the extra 5 minutes at the end can go into like on either side of working more or taking a little bit longer break. But for anyone who has ever been curious about that, that's how it worked for me. If you have any other suggestions for things that have worked for you, you don't have to be a freelancer, just like literally anything that has helped you be more efficient and productive. I don't really have too much of a problem with it, but I just was seeing like what can if I change things up, I'll get even better. But alas, it was to no avail. But it was still fun to try. And that's it for me, what I've been up to recently. So please go check out the link, Ocarina Animation, and the wind chime flip tutorial if you're interested. And let's jump over to the shout out of the day. Okay, so the shout out of the day for today is going to be a shout out of a magazine called Sabukaru. Like Sabukaru. It's like subculture. I'll have it up on the screen. And this is a really cool little like magazine outfit I found. I think I saw them on Instagram and started following them there, but they have a website where I don't know if they have actual physical copies, right? But it would be cool to get my hands on a few. But it's a really cool magazine. They do a lot of different like content, interviews, articles on various artists, cultural deep dives, how like art, fashion, creatives, and a whole lot of other stuff influences life and culture, particularly in Japan. And they have it in English. So if they interview someone in Japanese, they have like the Japanese and the English, which is really cool because if you know Japanese, you can get some of the nuances that you might lose. Even if it's a good translator, you're just going to lose some of the stuff no matter what when it gets turned into English, and vice versa, really. So yeah, it's really awesome. I've discovered a lot of cool artists and creators and like just cool stuff that I never really would have known about, like some of the cool like trends, like some of the eras back in the day of like central Tokyo, or like Harajuku stuff, or like fashion, or like some of the party club scene people, like legends of like this one guy. One of the articles was over a guy who was like a legend of the nightclub scene in Tokyo, and I read through it and it was like really interesting. I never would have really been interested that much just on my own looking for something like that. So I mean, this is also just a shout out, right, for like magazines, man. Like I remember growing up reading Thrasher and Transworld Skate magazines, and it was just like, it was awesome. And I was a little kid, man. It's funny. I just think of myself being like 8 or 9 years old, reading like a legit like article from like Mark Johnson about skateboarding or something, and like that's what inspired me to like keep skating. And you know, it's a medium that's having its own troubles. Obviously, paper, no one really buys it anymore. And it's not like the New York Times or something where they're basically just like clickbaiting people into like staying alive and relevant as a resource. The cool thing about like Sabukaru is like it's just really cool content and really cool stuff. So they don't really have to be too clickbaity about it. And as far as I can see, they're like probably the best doing it in Tokyo. Not too well versed in any of other like companies or magazines that are doing stuff like that, but yeah, super awesome. Go check them out and subscribe, subscribe and read their content and all that kind of good stuff, and help them keep making the stuff they're making, because yeah, I've learned of a lot of cool people. And even if it's something I already know, I normally learn a nugget or two of information that I didn't know before. So I think that's really important, is if you're covering topics that are like pretty well known, like you do your own deep dive and figure out something that's interesting in its own right. And just to give you an idea, I thought this was really nice, something they have on their website. They say sabukaru.online connects people with culture, products with context, subcultures with eras, and artists with the world. I was like, damn, that's really nice. That's really nice. So yeah, go check out their stuff and give them a follow. All right, so today I want to try out what I'm calling essentially a deep dive episode of Doodle Talk, where taking just like a quote, a phrase, an ideology, maybe a method, a technique, something like that, and just diving deeper into what it means for me as a person, as an artist, and kind of just like exploring it, So maybe it'll give you some food for thought, and it may not be the most like direct episode ever, but it's gonna be like a little, I guess, philosophical. But the quote we're looking at today is necessity is the mother of invention, right? And the thing is like, as much as art is about sitting down and doing the work, there is a big part that is mental, and creating an ethos of what it means for you to make art, and creating like almost a mantra or a guide for you to follow with your own like moral. It even gets into morals and stuff too, right? It taps into that. And I don't want to get too highbrow or in the weeds here, but I just thought it'd be fun to try out this style of podcast, since it still relates to art, and it might be useful for people. And who knows, if you're doing some soul searching when it comes to like creative passions and stuff, these types of phrases and these types of ideas and ways of thinking are what grounds me personally as an artist. So if you're looking for something like that, then I think this might be good. So the idea we're looking at today is necessity is the mother of invention. And I just want to talk about the idea, what it means to me, and how I relate to it with my own creative process in art and in general, right? So to kind of like, the first time I kind of became aware of this quote was I was a kid, and I think I had heard it here or there, right? And like, obviously it's not that hard to like, just at face value, it's not that hard to understand what it means. right? Like necessity is the mother of invention. Like out of necessity, something is born. If you have to do something, you'll find a way to do it, right? But the way I started to internalize it, and it became like one of my favorite quotes, is because my dad turned me on to Frank Zappa, the musician and composer. If you don't know who he is, he's a really, really awesome composer from back in like 60s, 70s, 80s. And he did a lot of cool, he did some like, you know, the genres he went from were like super varied, you know, like he did some pop stuff that you could kind of consider pop, I guess, but like jazz, like weird experimental music, and like had his own orchestra sometimes that he was working with, and he was an amazing musician. Actually, he passed away, but his band, or the bassist from his band, I believe it's Arthur Russell, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, came to UNT when I was studying there and played with one of the bands at our school, and they did a whole set of all Frank Zappa songs, and it was like one of the most badass concerts I've ever been to. So that definitely was awesome too. But getting back to the point here, so Frank Zappa originally had like some names for his band, and they were forced to change it. It was originally the Mother, or like Mother or something, and they had to change it. So because he was like forced to change it, like out of necessity, he changed his band name to the Mothers of Invention, like Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. And I don't know why, but I just thought that was so cool, like just a cool name, you know, like Mothers of Invention. And it just like flipped a switch and made a really little special place in my heart for that quote. And I guess to go back even further, right, like kind of talking about the quote itself, because that's how it started relating to me, right? But like going back to page 1, I looked it up, right? I tried to look up kind of the origins and the meaning, different meanings of this quote, and apparently from like Plato, his whatchamacallit, Republic, Plato's Republic, right? He wrote, "Our need will be the real creator." And apparently that was taken over time and kind of molded into the proverb, the phrase, necessity is the mother of invention. But I really like that. Our need will be the real creator. Like, that's so cool. I don't know why. I don't know if that's cool to you, but to me, that's like so cool, because it's like the need to do something will be the thing that creates it, right? And now you can look at this in kind of like a dire way of like, obviously, if you have a stick, if you're on a beach, you're deserted on a beach and you have a stick and wood or whatever, and like you need to make a fire, you're gonna figure out a way to do that, right? But I like to kind of peel that back and kind of look at it almost in a more like very vague general way of like how it applies to helping me, and like internalizing it as an ideology that helps my art and like helps me with the creative process. So there are two main ways that I think this ideology plays into that, like being important for me. And one is how it can help you grow or expand your horizons. And the second is how it can push you out of your comfort zone and help you create something even if you're not ready for it. So they're both a little similar, but I think they have some key differences, and I just wanted to go over each one and give some examples. So the first point, right? One of the ways I can internalize this phrase, this quote, is like thinking of it in the same vein as creating or having constraints for yourself, which in turn essentially causes you to make something you wouldn't have otherwise. And like, what do I mean by this, right? It's got like essentially needing to do something that isn't planned out from scratch, or being placed in a situation where there are time constraints or your ability is limited, and that's going to force you to grow as an artist. So, I mean, there are tons of positives of this, right? Like if you have a constraint that forces you to do something in a way you might not have done it if you could set all the rules and the timings and the deadlines and everything, there are positives that are going to come out of it, such as like picking up new tricks and tips, getting better at like scheduling and stuff like that, being able to be on time and schedule your work, or like you may have to practice or study something you wouldn't normally do, or like more like a real life example of like you might have to pull an all-nighter and you'll get a lot of practice out of that. You'll learn something from that, but then you'll also learn what not to do next time to avoid having to do that all-nighter. This is something I learned going to university and going to college and stuff, you know, is like, normally you have enough time to get everything done. So if your time management is done well, you can get away with things. But like, yeah, there was a few times where I had to pull an all-nighter, and it was not my fault. It's just kind of like there's just so much shit going on. Like, I'm working part-time too, like stuff like that. But hopefully you can learn like what not to do in order to avoid having to do that next time, right? And I really like the idea of having some like kind of constraints to help at least like get the ball rolling when it comes to making art. In terms of music, there were a lot of composers in the 20th century who played with this idea a lot, and they made some cool stuff out of it. I mean, this even relates back to like, you know, like atonal music, and people like literally like picking music notes that you have to use in a certain order or like a certain repetition, flipping those. It gets very mathematical, actually. It's a very interesting aspect of music and composition that happened, but to me, I was never a huge fan of atonal music, but the concept was awesome and I really liked it. And so, like most things, right, I tend to find that just like adapting and taking bits and pieces of something and using that kind of lends itself better to my own art. So instead of like having super rigid limitations and constraints, maybe just choosing a color palette to stick to, or focusing on one style that you're going to try for your drawing or animation. And honestly, this applies to all types of art. So like art, animation, drawing, music, anything, even just life stuff too, if you can apply it in the right way. But the main point here, right, is that in your struggles to overcome the adversity placed on you in whatever form it may be, whether it's done by yourself or outside forces, it's going to help you grow. And I also kind of think of this like it's similar to physical exercise, right? Like we tear down our muscles and let them grow back stronger. We push ourselves and find that we can run faster or longer the next time we're doing the same thing. It's those little like incremental changes that wouldn't have happened otherwise if you hadn't, you know, if you run in a straight, like you go out of your house, you're running outside, you run 2 miles one way, there's no shortcut to get back. Like you're going 2 miles back, you know? So it's like putting yourself in that situation, you know, is going to make you grow. And to kind of, this is a good segue moving on to the second point that I have here for this topic. This second point kind of is a little bit more all-encompassing and touches on aspects of the first topic as well. So it'll be kind of like merging them together and hopefully bringing it to like a little bit of a conclusion here. But the first way, right, is like the way I like to think of the idea of necessity is the mother of invention, is also thinking about it as like creating constraints or limitations on yourself so that you'll grow as a person or an artist, right? That's like one little vein, one little road that you can take through the overarching theme of necessity is the mother of invention. So one of the other paths, these are the two main paths that I kind of internalize, right? The second path is going to be pushing yourself into something you're not ready for, but knowing you want or / need to do it so that you in turn do it. And essentially this is similar to the first point, but instead of like limitations or constraints, you're placing the necessity onto the problem. So by doing that, like this becomes the catalyst and the main driving factor that makes you do or create whatever it is that you want to do. I know that may seem like kind of confusing, but I'll try and explain it here. Like this one is really hard to do just willy-nilly because that's great. I love willy-nilly. It's hard to do willy-nilly because it's so much easier said than done. And this is the point I'm trying to make here. Like I can sit here and say I need to film a video by next Tuesday, but you know, if work gets busy, if I catch a cold, forgot I need to cook dinner that night, blah, 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 that video might not be getting finished. are like filmed at all, you know? And let's be honest, like these kinds of like external forces are there always. They're always there. And I'm guilty of this. I am no like perfect human here. I'm no perfect, like, if I say I'm going to do it, I literally every single time, no matter what, always do it. And I have never not done that, right? I'm not going to sit here and try and say that. But I do truly believe that this is like a skill adjacent to discipline. And it takes time to build up, and you can get better at it over time. This is the really, really important thing here, is that like creating necessity for something to force yourself to do it is, in a way, in a sense, a skill that you can get better at. And to me, that's priceless. That's invaluable. That is so good as a person. This one doesn't even matter so much as an artist. Like going through with your goals in life and like holding yourself accountable for the things that you want to do, no matter what they are, is a really important thing. And if you can get better at it, and like naturally it becomes easier for you, then that's just amazing. And wouldn't you want to get better at it then? Like if you think about it that way, you know? So if you're not one of those people who's just like completely driven by the muse, the magical muse that just gives you beautiful ideas and stuff, or like some unseen force that just, you know, fucking writes the screenplay for you, then you might have to work at it, right? Like the rest of us, and create a system that helps you place enough importance on something that it will force you to get it done. And what I mean by this is a way to very just simplify it and make it a lot easier to understand, right? This is the main point of this second point. If you jump off into the deep end of a swimming pool with no one else around and you don't know how to swim, you're either going to figure it out or you're straight up going to drown, okay? Like, that's just the easiest way to look at it. And I mean, I know that's a tried and true kind of like little saying in its own, you know, like you gotta jump out of the nest to learn how to fly. You gotta jump into the deep end to learn how to swim. And it's super cliche, which is why I didn't want to just like start it with that, but like it is so true. It is so freaking true. And the way that I'm trying to avoid just spouting cliches here is like actually relating it back to the topic of like how you can apply that to something you're working on, right? So yeah, that's all fine and dandy. Like, I know if I jump into the deep end, I'm gonna have to swim, otherwise bad things are gonna happen, right? That's not, no one's debating that. But the thing here is like, what you need to do is create a situation that feels like you're jumping off into that deep end every single time, or at least for the things that are super important. And this, I don't think people really talk about this aspect of it. It's so easy to say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, jump off into the deep end, take the first step out of the nest and fly. But if you don't like create systems in order for people to actually do that kind of a thing, then you're just telling them to do XYZ without really giving them any sort of like foundation to go off of. So I want to try and avoid that and hopefully make this a little bit more helpful, right? Because it's like, I may not have all the answers either for these things, right? This is a really difficult thing to do, and I'm not here to just like tell you what to do either. What I will hopefully can accomplish is like helping people learn how to think about things in the way that will let them achieve it. You know, like I hope that's not too complicated. I don't want this to get all too crazy or anything, but it's really important having the mindset, you know. So just for example, right, the way I do it, besides literally just forcing myself when I can, like if I gotta go run, get a run in, I just force myself to go run. That's not really that hard, but it is harder when, you know, it's like, okay, I need to go brainstorm this animation, then I gotta rough it out, then I gotta do the lines, and then I gotta color it, and then I gotta do post effects and any comps and stuff, and like then I gotta add sound, and then I gotta mix and master. Like there's so many things that go into just like making one little thing that it can be paralyzing, right? If you just think about it like that. So what I need to do is kind of tricking myself or like creating obligations that I can't get out of. So one thing you can do is post something online and say like like say you've started it. This normally works a little bit better if you've already started it. If you haven't started it, it's so much easier to just bail out of. So normally what I do, if I start something, I'm like, okay, I'll post something and be like, this is going up next week, or like this will be done soon. Even if it's not concrete, like I just need to get it out into the real world, so that there's a little tiny part of me that's like gonna really try and hold myself accountable, and it's gonna make it a lot harder to just blow it off, because you don't want to go back on your word, right? Nobody does. And I know it's basically a meme at this point for like people who are like it's like big things coming, like someone who posts on Twitter or something like, yo guys, big things coming. I got big things coming, man. Like just wait, bro. Just wait. I got big things coming, man. And I am gonna take a bullet here and say, like, I'm definitely a little bit guilty of this, because when you get excited about something, you're like, oh shit, like just wait till I like finish this thing or put this thing out, like it's gonna be so awesome. But yeah, sometimes if you don't follow through, then you're just one of those bros who's just saying like, you know, big things coming. So this is where the part of the like literal discipline comes back into it, and you have to force yourself to do some of these things. But creating situations that are going to make yourself hold yourself more accountable is really, really important. Yeah, I mean, there's like posting, there's the way of like sitting down and working on it, just breaking it up into like little sections so that you don't feel as it's not as much of a daunting task to you. Then you can actually get little things done. Another thing I like to do is like give little teasers. So if you're working on something and you've got all the rough layers of, like, let's just say an animation, for example, you did all your roughs, and you have like a section or the whole thing that you can just like kind of show, maybe not show all of it, but show as like a little teaser, and know that once you show that, like you're willing it into the world, right? And maybe people might like that little thing that they saw, and that might inspire you, motivate you more to finish that thing. Or just adding little, because once you have 5-6 things that you've posted or like teased, you know, you're really holding yourself accountable at that point. Because if you're not going to put it out soon after that, then it's just like, why bother? You know, you're falling back into the big things coming, bro, territory there. So I mean, there are a lot of different things, right? There's a lot of different things that you can do, and you're gonna have to explore them and figure them out for yourself, see what works, because I don't want to just start like listing off every little thing, because at the end of the day, you have to figure out what works for you in order to hold yourself accountable. And maybe I'll try and add more in a separate things, like a separate video or something for these kinds of things. But just for today, I wanted to focus more on like the idea and thinking about the idea and how it can help you, right? So sort of to just close things out here, like obviously if the determination just isn't there from the beginning, this isn't going to help you. And this is definitely more of something like geared towards people who are already in a situation where they're making things, they're posting things, but they might need a little secret sauce to help them out, or they might need to just they might need that little boost, that little push to help them keep going, right? Because this is something that helps me a lot, is where, like, you know, you're doing good, you're doing well, you're posting, you're doing all that stuff, and then one person gives you a little comment in real life or online or something, or you have a talk with somebody and it kind of just makes you feel like, okay, yeah, this is right, I'm doing the right thing, I got to keep going. Those are really important. And tying this all back to the actual quote, right? The reason I love this quote and this ideology is because, to me, it's always kind of like putting the front foot forward and looking at things in a positive light. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with Goku's line from Dragon Ball Z. One of the things he would always say is, where there's a will, there's a way. And I can't tell you exactly why, but that just like a magnet drew me to that line, and I would just tell myself that over and over anytime I was facing a challenge or something difficult, or even just like a problem with life, big or small. Could be like a math test, and I was like, where there's a will, there's a way. Like, you're gonna finish this, you're gonna do good. If I was at soccer practice or something and we were running laps, where there's a will, there's a way. And that's just like super nerdy shonen jump like tropes, saving the day as a little 10-year-old Sam running around a soccer field or something. But like, that really shows the importance of, you know, works of art and like little things that influence us so much as children, right? And I wanted to talk about that because I think it relates to this quote of necessity is the mother of invention. And these two quotes are really similar. And to me, like, they've become inspiring, uplifting messages that basically what they do is they take out any question or doubt from your side of the equation of whether or not I can or can't, and leave only the hard work and determination to be filled in. Because where there's a will, there's a way, and necessity is the mother of invention. They don't leave any room for whether or not you're going to do the thing. The thing is going to be done. So all you have to figure out at the end of the day is how you're going to do it, and how you're going to consistently do it, and how you're going to create ways and methods to convince yourself to stay motivated and to keep consistently doing it. That's what I was trying to talk about earlier, where it's like, I can't just list off all these little... Sometimes the tips and tricks don't work for every little thing, right? But if you can figure out how to do it that works, like in a way that works for you, it's going to help you achieve that goal every single time. And the beautiful like plus side to these two like ideologies is like, most of the time you're going to be gaining new skills or knowledge by applying them to whatever you're working on. And if getting you to start something that you might not have otherwise, plus learning from it, is an option as far as like an outlook on life and a way to choose what you do, then I would pick that option every time. And I think that's going to be it for this episode. Sorry if it was kind of bogged down or if I rambled a bit on anything. I do like this kind of idea of doing a deep dive on some of these philosophies and ideologies. So let me know if you liked it, because I do have some other ones that I would like to try out, and we'll let's get deep. Let's get deep together, you know. I think it was fun though, and hopefully that helps for anyone who is doing some soul searching, as I often do. So, yep, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.